For most people, the word pharaoh instantly brings to mind names like Tutankhamun, Ramses the Great, or Cleopatra. These are rulers whose tombs, monuments, and legacies survived the centuries. But hidden behind those famous names are others who once wore the double crown of Egypt, yet today remain almost invisible. One of those shadows in history is Thutmose II. Thutmose II ruled more than 3,400 years ago. He belonged to the powerful 18th dynasty, a dynasty that would later produce the empire's most iconic leaders. Yet, despite sitting on the throne of one of the most sophisticated civilizations of the ancient world, his memory almost vanished. No royal tomb has ever been confirmed as his. No intact body has been proven to belong to him. For decades, Egyptologists searched for a trace of him, and every time they thought they were close, the evidence crumbled. Why is this pharaoh so elusive? To answer that, we need to step back and look at the political storm surrounding his short reign. Thutmose II was the son of Thutmose I, a king remembered for military campaigns that expanded Egypt's borders. His mother, Mutnofre, was a secondary wife, not the chief queen. That meant Thutmose II had royal blood, but he was not automatically the strongest candidate for succession. To secure his legitimacy, he married his half-sister Hatshepsut, daughter of Thutmose I and his great royal wife Ahmose. In the rules of Egyptian royalty, that marriage made perfect sense. It bound two branches of the family together and gave Thutmose II a partner with impeccable royal credentials. But it also planted the seeds of one of history's most fascinating power struggles. Hatshepsut was not a passive queen. She was intelligent, ambitious, and deeply connected to the priesthood of Amun. When Thutmose II became king, she was the visible royal figure beside him. In temple reliefs, her presence is unusually prominent. For some historians, this suggests that Thutmose II may have been weak or sickly, leaving much of the ceremonial role to his queen. Ancient sources hint that his reign lasted only a decade, perhaps even less. Military records from this time are sparse, and most of the monuments attributed to him were finished by others. This is where the mystery deepens. Because his reign was short and overshadowed by Hatshepsut, there was little monumental evidence to cement his legacy. When he died, his son, Thutmose III, was still a child. Hatshepsut soon stepped forward, not just as regent, but as full pharaoh, one of the very few women to claim the throne of Egypt in her own right. From that moment on, the memory of Thutmose II became tangled with hers. Was he deliberately downplayed? Was his tomb hidden, erased, or unfinished because Hatshepsut wanted to redirect attention to her own rule? Archaeologists have searched for answers. In the Valley of the Kings, where many pharaohs of the 18th dynasty were buried, they uncovered tombs of his relatives, Thutmose I, Hatshepsut, Thutmose III. But the expected burial place of Thutmose II has never been found. Some thought he might rest in KV42, a tomb intended for a queen but possibly reassigned. Others suspected KV20, the tomb of Hatshepsut, could have been his original resting place before she claimed it. Each hypothesis seemed plausible, but none could be proven. The physical remains of Thutmose II add even more confusion. In the royal cache discovered at Deir el-Bahari in the late 19th century, archaeologists found dozens of mummies hidden by priests to protect him from tomb robbers. Among them was a badly damaged male mummy believed by some to be Thutmose II. The body showed signs of disease and a relatively young age at death, which fit the descriptions of his reign. But the identification was never certain. Without inscriptions or DNA proof, the mummy could not be definitively tied to him. This uncertainty kept historians restless. In textbooks, Thutmose II often appears as little more than a name between two titans, his father Thutmose I and his son Thutmose III, both famous warrior kings, and his wife Hatshepsut, one of Egypt's most powerful queens. He seems almost like a placeholder, a brief interruption in a dynasty of giants. Yet the absence of his tomb made him strangely compelling. Each missing piece hinted at a bigger story. Was he erased on purpose? Did Hatshepsut want her husband's memory minimized so she could shine brighter? Or was it simply bad luck, his tomb destroyed, looted, or left unfinished in the chaos of succession? For Egyptologists, finding his resting place became something of a holy grail. Tombs are not just graves, they are time capsules. They hold objects, inscriptions, and sometimes intact mummies that can transform our understanding of history. The discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb in 1922 reshaped global fascination with Egypt. Finding Thutmose II could have a similar effect, especially because it would illuminate the early stages of Hatshepsut's rise to power. Year after year, archaeologists returned to the Valley of the Kings, to Luxor, to Saqqara, hoping to stumble across evidence. In the sands of Egypt, many royal names appeared again and again. But not his. Each season ended with disappointment, his tomb still lost. That absence even fueled myths among locals and tourists. Some whispered that the pharaoh had been cursed, erased by the gods themselves. Others suggested his burial had been hidden so well that it might never be found. In academic circles, the mystery became a cautionary tale about how fragile history can be. A king who once commanded armies, temples, and priests could vanish almost completely in just a few centuries. And yet, the hope never died. Archaeology is full of surprises. The Valley of the Kings still has unexplored chambers. Saqqara continues to reveal tombs thought impossible to survive. Every year, technology improves. Ground-penetrating radar, 3D mapping, and DNA sequencing open new doors that earlier generations of Egyptologists could only dream of. By the early 2020s, the hunt for missing royals had reached a new phase. Researchers were not just digging, they were scanning landscapes, re-examining old finds, and using advanced chemical analysis on fragments long stored in museums. Against that backdrop, the mystery of Thutmose II burned brighter. If his tomb were ever discovered, it would not just fill a gap in history, it would rewrite the early 18th dynasty. And so, the story of Thutmose II became less about what we know, and more about what we don't know. He is the pharaoh nobody could find, the king whose absence is louder than his presence. For over a century, that silence haunted Egyptologists. And in 2025, the silence was finally broken. For more than a century, archaeologists have searched for the missing tomb of Thutmose II. Every season of excavation carried the same hope. That somewhere, beneath the sands of Egypt, his resting place still waited. The story of this search begins in the Valley of the Kings. This narrow valley in Luxor became the burial ground for Egypt's greatest rulers of the New Kingdom. 63 tombs have been identified here. Some are vast and richly decorated. Others are unfinished tunnels cut into the rock. But one tomb is missing. The tomb of Thutmose II. Archaeologists first believed it should be near the tombs of his father and his son. Thutmose I was buried in KV 38. Thutmose III, his child, rests in KV 34. Logically, the missing king's tomb should be nearby. Yet nothing appeared. Excavations in the late 19th and early 20th centuries brought incredible finds. The tomb of Tutankhamun. The caches of royal mummies hidden in Deir el-Bahari. The decorated chambers of Ramses the Great. But no Thutmose II. Why was his tomb so difficult to find? The answer lies partly in the destruction of the ancient world. Tomb robbery was common even in antiquity. Kings buried with gold and jewels were irresistible targets. By the time Greek and Roman travelers arrived, many royal tombs were already empty. Another reason is political. Hatshepsut, the wife and successor of Thutmose II, may have altered his burial. Some scholars believe she deliberately downplayed his memory. Others think she reused or moved his tomb to make space for her own. This political shadow made the search even harder. Through the 20th century, archaeologists advanced deeper into the Valley of the Kings. They mapped every cliff and every shaft. They cleared debris, sand, and collapsed stone. Each time they found a new chamber, hopes rose. Each time the name Thutmose failed to appear, hopes fell again. Some suspected KV-42. This tomb was originally built for Queen Meritra Hatshepsut. But signs suggested it might have been reused for a king. Could that king have been Thutmose II? Most inscriptions referred only to the queen. The evidence was thin. So the theory faded. Others pointed to KV-20. This was the tomb of Hatshepsut herself. Long, twisting corridors cut deep into the rock. At first, some argued it had been started for Thutmose II. Later, it was claimed by his wife. But again, the evidence was uncertain. As years passed, the search expanded beyond the Valley of the Kings. Archaeologists turned their eyes to Saqqara. This ancient necropolis near Cairo had been used for burials long before the New Kingdom. Yet discoveries there showed that royal burials sometimes returned to old sites. Could Thutmose II have been buried there instead of Luxor? The possibility gained attention, but no tomb was found. Still, the fascination grew. Why would a king's tomb vanish so completely? Was it hidden by design? Was it lost to natural disaster? Or was it simply buried deeper than anyone expected? The mystery became almost legendary among Egyptologists. Each new discovery was measured against the missing tomb. Every fragment of inscription, every broken statue, every undecorated chamber raised the same question. Could this be him? Technology brought new hope. In the 1960s, ground surveys began to reveal hidden cavities under the desert floor. In the 1990s, ground-penetrating radar identified anomalies beneath the valley. By the 2010s, satellite imaging allowed researchers to scan entire landscapes from the sky. Each tool promised the chance to locate lost chambers. Yet the name Thutmose remained silent. The hunt became not just archaeology, but detective work. Researchers re-examined the records of early explorers. They studied the notes of Howard Carter, the man who found Tutankhamun. They checked overlooked artifacts stored in museum basements. Even the smallest fragment of hieroglyph could change the story. Some finds gave sparks of hope. Fragments of funerary equipment with partial royal names. Pieces of coffin wood linked to the early 18th dynasty. But none were conclusive. None could confirm the tomb. The mystery also attracted myth. Tour guides in Luxor whispered of a cursed king whose tomb refused to be found. Locals speculated that the desert itself had swallowed him. Tourists asked if his ghost protected the secret. While archaeologists dismissed the legends, they admitted one truth: the silence of Thutmose was louder than most discoveries. By the early 21st century, the search was global. Teams from Egypt, Europe, America, and Japan all joined the quest. Each year, they returned to the desert valleys. Each year, they brought advanced scanners and new theories. And each year, they left without an answer. The absence became part of his identity. Thutmose II, the pharaoh nobody could find. His reign was short. His legacy was thin. His tomb was missing. And that combination made him one of the greatest archaeological enigmas of the ancient world. The search was not just about one king. It was about the story of Egypt itself. Every lost tomb is a lost chapter. Without it, the history of the 18th dynasty is incomplete. With it, the story could change forever. That is why archaeologists never gave up. They knew that even a single chamber filled with rubble could hold treasures of history. They knew that one inscription could confirm a name. And they knew that somewhere, beneath stone and sand, the answer still waited. By the 2020s, optimism returned. Archaeologists had uncovered new tombs at Saqqara, including priests and nobles. Some were untouched for millennia. The discoveries proved that the desert still held secrets. If the tomb of a high priest could survive, why not that of a king? The world began to pay attention again. News headlines announced each new discovery. Every press conference raised the same speculation. Could this finally be the tomb of Thutmose II? And then, in 2025, the whispers grew louder. Reports emerged of a new royal tomb uncovered. The details were scarce, but the claims were bold. For the first time in 100 years, archaeologists said, a lost pharaoh might have been found. The year is 2025. After more than a century of searching, a team of archaeologists makes an announcement. They claim to have uncovered a royal tomb unlike anything seen in generations. The location, the edge of Saqqara, the vast necropolis near Cairo. Saqqara had already produced spectacular finds in recent years. Priests, officials, entire burial shafts sealed since the New Kingdom. But now, reports spoke of something bigger. A pharaoh's tomb. The news spread fast. For the first time in 100 years, scholars whispered, Egypt had revealed a new royal burial. Could this be the resting place of the elusive Thutmose II? The first details were sparse. Archaeologists described a shaft cut deep into the limestone. At the bottom, they found a sealed chamber. Inside was a sarcophagus, heavily damaged but unmistakably royal in form. The air was thick with dust and anticipation. Cameras captured the moment as the chamber door was opened. The walls were rough, unfinished in places. But fragments of decoration clung to the stone. Symbols of divine protection. Faded traces of hieroglyphs. The sarcophagus lay at the center. It was cracked, the lid displaced by ancient robbers. Inside, human remains were found, though badly decayed. Around the body were fragments of jewelry, pieces of wooden furniture, and a scattering of amulets. At first glance, it looked like dozens of other looted tombs. But then came the details that set it apart. Among the debris, archaeologists identified fragments of cartouches. The ovals that once carried a royal name. Most were broken, incomplete. But one seemed to hold the faint traces of the name Thutmose. The discovery set the academic world on fire. Was this the lost tomb? Was this finally the missing pharaoh? The team released photos to the press. Images of the sarcophagus spread across the internet. Desert panoramas. Close-ups of carved stone. Reconstructed 3D scans of the burial chamber. For the public, it was breathtaking. For scholars, it was a puzzle. Excitement collided with skepticism. Many Egyptologists warned that the evidence was thin. A few broken hieroglyphs were not enough. Others argued that the context mattered more. The artifacts matched the early 18th dynasty. The style of burial fit the period of Thutmose II. Day by day, more details emerged. The human remains were badly preserved. But traces of disease appeared in the bones. Signs of a life cut short, possibly in the early 30s. This matched the historical accounts of Thutmose II. The amulets provided another clue. Some bore the symbols of kingship. The crook and flail. The double uraeus, the twin cobras of royal power. These were not the ornaments of a priest or noble, they belonged to a king. Yet, questions lingered. Why was the tomb in Saqqara, not the Valley of the Kings? Had Hatshepsut hidden her husband's body away from Luxor? Or had priests reburied him here during a later period of crisis? Theories multiplied. Some believed the tomb was his original burial, unfinished and concealed. Others thought it was a reburial site, chosen to protect his remains from desecration. Either way, the discovery was extraordinary. For the Egyptian government, it was a moment of triumph. Officials announced the find in a grand press conference. Journalists crowded into Cairo to hear the news. After centuries of mystery, they declared, "The pharaoh has returned." International media exploded with headlines. The lost tomb found. Egypt reveals new pharaoh. First royal discovery in a century. Tourists flocked to Saqqara. Hotels filled with visitors eager to glimpse the site. Drone footage of the desert aired on global television. The lost king was suddenly world news. But within the academic community, caution remained. Scholars urged patience. The cartouches were fragmentary. The DNA had not been sequenced. The inscriptions were too damaged to offer certainty. The question remained, was this truly Thutmose II, or another forgotten royal? Teams of specialists arrived. Epigraphers studied every fragment of hieroglyph. Anthropologists examined the bones. Conservators worked to stabilize fragile artifacts. Each new test brought both hope and doubt. The chamber itself told a story. Unlike the grand halls of Ramses or Seti, it was modest. Narrow corridors. Simple carvings. A rushed construction. This matched the idea of a short reign. A king who died before a grand tomb could be finished. And yet, the few decorations that survived carried royal symbols. The winged sun disk. The goddess Ma'at. Protective deities carved into the walls. Even in its unfinished state, it was clearly meant for a pharaoh. For Egyptologists, this was the climax of a century-long hunt. The lost pharaoh, invisible for millennia, was finally within reach. But for others, it was only the beginning. Because every discovery raised new mysteries. Why here, at Saqqara, far from his dynasty's tradition? Why so little inscription? Why such a poor state of preservation for a royal burial? Some suggested sabotage. That Hatshepsut herself may have concealed or minimized his burial. Others thought looting destroyed the evidence centuries ago. And a few believed the find might even belong to another royal entirely, perhaps a relative lost to history. Still, the possibility electrified the world. For the first time in generations, people looked at Egypt not through the lens of Tutankhamun, but through a different forgotten name. The mystery of Thutmose II had stepped out of dusty textbooks and into global headlines. As 2025 unfolded, the investigation continued. Archaeologists promised DNA testing. Historians called for cautious optimism. And the public, captivated by the idea of a lost tomb, waited for answers. The desert had given up one of its secrets. But whether it had truly revealed the pharaoh nobody could find, that remained the question. If you enjoyed this journey into ancient Egypt, give this video a like, it helps more than you know. And if you want to see every new discovery as it happens, hit subscribe and join our community. Your support keeps this channel alive, and allows us to keep bringing history back to life.